Hi everyone, it's Shell from Scrap Secrets and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is for the card Hoppin November Hop, and we were to either use foiling or drops, and the theme was sparkles. So I created these 3 cards. I wanted to do 2 that were very similar. I had an idea in my mind, and then I actually went searching on Nuvo drop ideas, and I came up with the 3rd one off of an inspiration that Michele did a while ago. So that'll be the butterfly one. But these 2, I wanted to show how you could use drops in 2 different ways to create a very similar look. So we are going to be using some Nuvo drops and doing a spread, kind of like you would do a paste. I had no idea if this was going to work or not. We're using a Kindred Stamps stencil, and I'm just putting down some of that Nuvo drops onto the stencil. At first, I just put it on the top like you would do a paste and pulled it down, but then I realized that too much of the sparkles were getting caught on the stencil and not enough was going through. So I decided to just go over some of the lines and then kind of push it down into the stencil. There probably is an easier way to do this. You might actually be able to do it a little bit better with a palette knife, but I bought these scrapers a long time ago and I never used them. I am just going back in and adding them into the places where I thought they were necessary. This does tend to use a little bit more of your Nuvo drops than you would if you were doing other techniques with it, but I've had Nuvo drops for a really long time and I don't tend to use them a lot. So I am going to go over one last time with all of these, and I apologize. I had all my supplies written down somewhere, and I can't find the paper. So I don't know exactly what color these Nuvo drops are. They are some type of gold glitter ones. All the Nuvo drops today we're going to be using have glitter in them because, again, sparkle was the theme. I'm going ahead and adding a little bit more to the areas that might be missing. Some areas didn't come out perfectly, but that's fine. That's what happens with pastes. So it's not as though it gives a completely different look than pastes. So you'll see I'm going back into some of the larger dots and adding the drops into there, and then going to smooth it out a little bit along the lines. If I was to do this over, I would just put them on the lines and then just pull the palette scraper down in that same direction. Then I'll put the background to the side to let it dry, and then we'll work on the next one. So this is from a honeybee cover plate, and I ran it through my Cuttlebug. It was my Big Shot machine. I'm so used to saying Cuttlebug. And I made the paper a little bit smaller than the die and then just taped it to there because I wasn't sure if it was going to cut out the edges or not, but I wanted it to be a little bit smaller than the card front. So I'm just using the dots as embellishments to kind of highlight that area where the X's meet on each one of those points. So I'm putting that down. And then I'm going to put that aside to dry. This one definitely took a little bit longer. And I'm showing the bottle, and it looks like it's called Honey Gold of the Nuvo Glitter Drops. So there's the 2 backgrounds so you can compare them. I'm showing you here the 3 colors of Nuvo glitter drops that we're going to be using for the background. And I'm going to be using some Distress Oxide in Salty Ocean, Seedless Preserves, and Kitsch Flamingo to add some color to these butterflies. This stencil is an older one. This is from Simon Says Stamp, and I've had it in my stash for a while. So this card came about because I was looking for inspiration to use Nuvo drops in a different way, and I came across an old YouTube video from Michele where she had these cutout butterflies on the edges of her cards, and then the center was all decorated with different size Nuvo drops, and I really liked that. But I also liked trying to figure out if you could use Nuvo drops through the stencils. I hadn't seen anybody do that before, and I was like, you know what, let me just try it out. So I wanted to do all 3 cards. Again, it didn't take me super long. The longest part was letting it dry, but I really wanted to try a couple different techniques through this because I don't use Nuvo drops as much, and maybe this will give me some inspiration to continue to use them, and hopefully it will give you guys some inspiration. So while you're watching me ink up these butterflies, I wanted to tell you a little bit about the card hopping group as well as this month's challenge. So card hopping group is part of the Handmade Happiness group, and we come together once a month and have 2 different techniques and a theme that you can choose from, and it's open to anybody who has a paper crafting YouTube channel. So there are lots of different people that you'll see in the hops each month, and I hope you guys will follow along. The link to all of the participants will be listed in the description box, so make sure that you check that out. So this month it is foiling or drops, and we are using sparkle as our theme. And if you guys know anything about me, you guys know that pretty much every single card of mine has some sparkle to it. So when I initially signed up for this, I saw the sparkle and I was like, that's it, I'm gonna do it. And then I sent my friend Maria a text and I was like, why did I do this? Because I love sparkle, but I don't really use drops that often. And I was like, I can't think of anything. And then here I ended up doing 3 cards with the Nuvo drops. So sometimes supplies that you have sitting around that you don't use a lot, and you're forced to use them by doing these challenges, really helps you expand your creativity, use your products. Because like I said, I have so many Nuvo drops because I'm a collector, not always a user, and I really, really enjoyed doing this. So back to the card now, I am just taking those 3 different colors. I know the blue is Lagoon, and I apologize that I don't have the 2 colors for the other ones, the purple and the pink ones. And I'm just adding some details to a couple of the butterflies. So I put dots on that blue to purple one. I'm putting lines on the wings for the pink one, and then I'm just going around adding drops, and I'm doing different size drops as we go through. Now obviously the largest ones are going to be the ones that take the longest to dry. You could also create your own embellishments with this. You don't have to just do it on the front of the card. If you have paper that is, it's kind of like the slippery paper, so sometimes like the back of foam tape, if you get those name tags, you'll have that kind of like slippery wax paper thing that you can go ahead and put your drops down on it. Anything that it won't stick to, but it's fine for it just to sit on, you can actually pick them up with a palette knife or a craft knife and glue them down onto your project so you can pre-create them. That way you don't have to worry about sitting here waiting for them to dry, because like this purple one that I did, oh, it took forever for it to dry. I actually was putting the card fronts on, which you'll see in a little bit, and all of the drops were not dry, and I was trying my hardest not to stick my hand in some of them. Of course I did, especially the ones on the edge. That one on the bottom left-hand corner, definitely stuck my hand in it, but it was smaller, so it was basically dry. So I'm just going back in and adding different shapes of the color dots just to fill in that space. Now, I was torn between adding a sentiment to this. I do add a sentiment to one of the cards. Oh, and you'll notice here that I'm actually flicking behind the back of the paper, and what that does is it helps it dry to a more round consistency, rather than sometimes when you pick up the drops you'll have a little bit of a point in there, and instead of taking a craft knife or anything like that to kind of smooth it out, you can just flick the back of the paper and it'll naturally make it fall down so that it will have more of a domed top rather than a point at the top. So again, just going back in and adding some more details to the cards. I'm really enjoying doing these challenges. Like I said, it's forcing me to use my supplies. I say forcing like it's a bad thing. It's not. Sometimes I get into a rut, and I'm sure that everybody that is watching the hop has been in a rut sometimes. And so this can really help you break out of those creative ruts. And like I said, I really don't use these Nuvo drops, and I'm excited to try to use them, and you'll probably see it if you watch my Christmas series. I'm sure these Nuvo drops will make some sort of appearance in that as well. So now we're going back to letting that dry and going back to the first one that we made. And since we did really thin layers of this, this was the first one to dry. So I'm using my Honeybee honey cuts, I think they're called. And I'm using the pierced outline as well as the outline of the word, and I cut it out of that same cardstock that I cut the background out of. And I don't think I told you guys, this one is there's a sheen to this one. I got it from Michael's, and it has like a goldish white sheen to it, which is why I chose those honey gold Nuvo drops, because I wanted it to bring out the gold in the paper. So once I've glued it down, I'm going to try to figure out where I want it to go on the card. and then I'm going to put some foam tape on the back of it. I wanted it to pop up off of the background because as you can see there, it was really blending into the paper. So once I've put it on in the place that I want it to, I am going to go back in with those same Nuvo drops and add them over top of the sparkle. So there's really a lot of things that you can do with Nuvo drops. You don't have to just use them as little dots as embellishments. You can use them as accents to die cuts. You can use them through stencils. You can use them as dots. You can use them to highlight something like we did in that quilted background. So again, be really creative with these, and I can't wait to see what everyone else does with drops. I don't know if everybody's using Nuvo drops or different types of drops. The challenge was just drops, so all I had were Nuvo ones. So once I have done that, I'm going to let that dry. I did have to be really, really careful with this. I did come back in a little while. I let it dry as much as I could for the 3 backgrounds, but I was getting impatient and I had to put them onto the card bases so that I could take the pictures and get this ready for going up on YouTube. So I'm using some Be Creative Honeybee glue and I put it right onto the card base just so that I didn't have to flip that over because this one was still really, really wet. I glued that down onto a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card front or card base, and did the same thing with this one. I did not add any sentiment to this one. I probably could have done sparkle on this one too, but I'm not sure what I'm going to use it for. So I left that one blank, and then I did the very last one, being careful really not to touch that sparkle. So those are the 3 cards for today. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you guys follow along with us on the hop. Again, the links to everybody's will be listed below, as well as the link to the next person's. And I will see you guys again real soon for another video. Bye.